Good afternoon, and welcome to Let's Talk, where we bring insightful conversations on important issues facing our community. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer, and I am so excited to have you here with us today. We've got another, like I said, another exciting program. We've got some great guests in addition to our reporters conversation that we're going to have at the end of the show. And we want to start bringing that to you once a month because our reporters are all over the place and there are a lot of great topics that are important that we think we can delve into a little bit more deeply if you've been reading the newspaper or watch the show or follow us online. So we want to make sure that you can have conversations, dialogue with our reporters, our managing editor as well. So stay tuned for that part of the program. But we're excited. We've gotten some excited news about these resource centers that are located on some of the nation's historically Black colleges and universities, aimed at empowering students and faculty on ways to protect their intellectual property and how to foster innovation. Now, I know I've said a lot, but Troy Blackwell, the Deputy Chief of Communications for the U.S. Department of Commerce Patent and Trademark Office, is going to give us some details on what they're offering students at HBCUs to help to, again, protect their intellectual property and to do things to help to foster innovation. Our young folks are really creative. They're starting businesses. They're doing a lot of things. And so we're going to talk to Troy to find out how the U.S. government is working with them to protect all of this that they're creating. This is a generation of creatives, as so many of us say. And then Ted Trabu, who's the commissioner for the Public Service Commission, will be with us to shed light on the highly anticipated 2024 Clean Energy Summit. Again, yes, it's the Clean Energy Summit, an event that stands at the forefront of driving sustainable and equitable energy solutions impacting the local community. So we look forward to talking to Ted in a little bit about that, this energy summit, which, those of you all have been following what's happening all across the country, I think it is time, it's beyond time for us to really sort of zero in on what we're talking about when it relates to clean energy and other environmental and sustainability topics. So Ted's going to be here to guide us through and to help us and to invite us to this event that's going to take place here in Washington, D.C. Next week. And lastly, as I said, we're bringing back our team of fearless Washington Informer reporters who are going to bring together insightful stories that delve into some of the hot topics and current events that are shaping conversations throughout the DMV. So you won't want to miss that conversation. I know I don't. I'm looking forward to it. I'm also excited to introduce to you one of our newest writers, a student at Howard University. We call her Skyla, but it's Skylar. And she is a sports reporter, and she has a lot to say about this great news that we're talking about all over in barbershops, grocery stores, church, every place about the Washington Commanders. So we're so happy that she's going to be joining us as well. So before we get started, I hope you picked up a copy of the Washington Informer. I don't have one to show you, but we print every week. And gosh, I don't know why I don't have one. You all know, like, I like to do the BAM thing, but that's the digital issue right there. Thank you, Chevry. Thank you. Here we are. Yes. This is this week's issue of the Washington Informer. This is my go-to every week. So I love to show folks the fact that we are still printing newspapers, and we hope to continue to do that as long as you will continue to pick them up and read them in our 60th year. As you all know, we celebrated our 60th anniversary last year. We observed our 60th anniversary. The celebration is coming. So we'll tell you, but right now we'll just say save the date, March 28, 2025. And we'll send you some details, but mark your calendar and put in that box Informer Celebration, because we want you to be there with us. But yes, if you haven't picked up a copy of the Informer, you can visit us at our website, WashingtonInformer.com, where you can read the publication online. And we hope that when you're there and you go to the website, there will be a little box that'll pop up. And we ask you, just fill in your email address, because we'd love for you to become a part of the Washington Informer family, to subscribe to our daily newsletter that comes out every morning. And you'll see that we have several other newsletters that we want to share with you. Our House, which talks about or shares information about home ownership in the DMV. We're about to launch Win Africa, which is a newsletter that will specifically talk about the African diaspora. We have the JP Morgan Chase Money Talk issue, and of course, deals and offers and Word in Black. If you all haven't had a chance to see Word in Black, subscribe to that newsletter as well, which is a national newsletter, which the Washington Informer is a part of. We share information with 10 Black-owned newspapers across the country. We're getting a lot of background here, so sorry about that. But please be sure to share today's broadcast on your social media platforms and follow us on Facebook, IG, X, TikTok, Nextdoor, LinkedIn, YouTube. We might have some more to share with you sometime in the near future, but at least on those platforms and the ones you feel most comfortable with. Like I said, you can get the newsletter in your inbox. And last but not least, we certainly want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV. No spaces, one word, Washington Informer TV. So with that, we're going to move now to our weekly news broadcast by Curtis Knowles. I guess we're not going to do that this week. Gosh, where's Curtis? I miss him. Because Curtis, as you know, helps to keep us up to date on some of the news that we cover in the Informer, but also other news around the DMV. So hopefully he will be back with us next week. So we're going to move on. It is my absolute pleasure to bring to Let's Talk the Deputy Communications Officer for the Department of Commerce, Patent and Trademark Office, Mr. Troy Blackwell, to talk about this exciting partnership between the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and the historically Black colleges and universities. Troy, are you there?
I am here. Great afternoon, Denise. Pleasure to be with you.
My pleasure as well. And I know you're talking about government agencies. You're in the airport right now, so have conversation will travel. So glad you were able to join us before you catch that flight.
Thank you. I'm super glad to be with you, and thank you for what you do, uplifting African American media and sharing the news with the community. It's so vital and important.
Our pleasure. But before we get started, Troy, tell us, what your office is not one folks talk about often, only unless they need you for what? Give us the background on the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office.
Yes. So the United States Patent and Trademark Office, we are a sub-agency. We are part of the U.S. Department of Commerce. Our responsibility is we help entrepreneurs and innovators and everyday people who legally want to protect their work. So anything that has to do with intellectual property, if you have a great idea, if you created an invention, we are the agency that will help support you in that process. So specifically patents and trademarks. So that's primarily our role. And a lot of people may not necessarily know to how to come to us or exactly what we do. But for anyone who is creating an invention, anyone who has a great idea, is just even thinking about something, we are the agency that will help you legally protect your work so you are able to get all the resources and benefits behind your creativity.
I talked about this generation, which I call the generation of creatives. But how did the HBCUs get on the patent office's radar?
Yes. So at our agency, we have patent and trademark resource centers. These are basically libraries at college universities all across the country that provide free resources, information, consultation, legal services, tools on how to use our databases. Our patent and trademark resource centers have existed since 1871, so a really long time. But I believe in 1987, we opened our first patent trademark center at an HBCU, the illustrious Howard University. And since then, in 2022, when our undersecretary, Kathy Vidal, came in, her and our deputy undersecretary, Derek Brent, are passionate about inclusive innovation. They want to make sure that resources and tools are available to all communities. So our undersecretary wrote a letter to over 600 universities asking them them to open a patent trademark resource center and for us to partner. And so in 2023, we opened up 3 new patent trademark resource centers. And then this month in October, we just opened up our 5th patent trademark resource center at an HBCU. And for your viewers, those 5 HBCUs are Howard University, Southern A&M, Prairie View A&M, South Carolina State, and now the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore.
So when we talk about, I'm still trying to get this though, when we talk about inventors and entrepreneurs, what, I mean, I know research, what have you, those are the things, but what's coming out of these universities from these students, particularly at these HBCUs that you all are supporting them with? Can you give us some examples?
Yeah. So primarily what the resource centers serve as is pretty much providing this pro bono support. If you have an idea, if you have questions, maybe you want to learn how to use our tools in the database to see if something currently exists that maybe you're thinking about creating, that's where you can go. We'll offer free legal advice as part of that process. Our PTRCs, they also offer workshops and classes on intellectual property where they teach people this is how you go through the application process. This is how you apply. This is what the timeline looks like. This is what you can expect. Because a lot of people have great ideas, and we know that there's no shortage of great ideas coming out of our HBCUs, but folks may not necessarily know what that process looks like. And so to give you an example, about 25% of all Black graduates who have a background in STEM are graduates from historically Black colleges and universities. And for example, Howard University in 2023, we had over 160 consultations that came strictly just from campus alone of folks who were interested in consultations and workshops about how do I protect my work? What does that look like? How can I receive pro bono support, and just understanding how the application process works, when to apply, what that time looks like, when you hear back what to expect, and gather all of your pieces together for your application.
So, I know that I have met students over the years because of journalism who have while they were students, they created magazines, they created podcasts, they created, from a journalistic standpoint, and I guess think that this is something that they will want to continue to do. But being able to trademark that product is something that doesn't quite always come across their minds. I mean, is that something you could help students with?
Absolutely. So at these resource centers, there are workshops and consultations free to the public that are both about patents and trademarks. And as someone who comes from a communications background, I would encourage anyone in media relations who's interested. You can even go to PTRC on a campus, even if you're not necessarily a student there. We also have PTRCs that are general libraries across the country as well. So these are libraries that you can walk in, you get free services, and to give you an example, in 2023, we did about over 700 workshops, and those 700 workshops had over 10,000 attendees that attended those, right, to receive this information. So these are completely free. You come in, they'll explain to you what intellectual property is. You can get a one-on-one consultation. You can participate in group workshops and courses that will explain the process to you. You can use all of our tools to look up information completely free and at your disposal.
So once you get to the point of actually applying for a patent or a trademark, there are costs involved in that, though, right?
Yes, so there are costs that are involved. However, we do have pro bono services available as well. So that's part of our effort to be able to support those who are traditionally underrepresented in the patent and trademark process. And so we do have pro bono services. Those pro bono services are available. You can look at USPTO.gov and you can find more information specifically about how do you obtain those services, one-on-one consultations that come from that. And there's also different pro bono services for different communities as well. So for example, today we're highlighting our work with HBCUs, but as we know, intersectionality is important as well. We have programs for women entrepreneurs. We have pro bono services for those who are veterans and, have served country greatly. We do want to be able to support those folks as well. So we have resources across the board for so many communities.
You mentioned, Troy, the word underrepresented. And I'm wondering, if this is what has, you know, I guess, inspired the Patent and Trademark Office to really reach out. I mean, are there groups of people within the American population that are underrepresented, as you're suggesting? I mean, what does that mean? Does that mean that we want to? I mean, it's not that people don't have ideas; they just don't know how to access the services, or what void are we trying to fill here?
We're trying to fill just a resource void. I think there's no shortage of ideas from all communities in this country, but I think it's just a matter of resources, of knowing where to go, who to go to, and how to apply. And so that's something that we've been big on, specifically right now with the leadership that we have, with our undersecretary and deputy undersecretary, is how do we support people from all communities and make sure that our resources are readily available? Because even for folks, even in business circles and other circles, it's just a matter of where are the resources, right? As you mentioned, we are not necessarily an agency that people know much about. People know that we provide patents and trademarks, but exactly what those services look like, how to apply, what that timeline looks like, there are a lot of questions about that information. So one of the things that we're doing specifically in my portfolio, co-leading the communication shop, is being able to tell our story about who we are as an agency, what are the resources that we have available, and how we can make those resources more readily available. And so that's also really the idea behind our patent and trademark research centers, is having these libraries at college campuses where anyone, whether you are a student or someone from the general public, can easily access these resources for free at your disposal, right? So that's part of what this is making sure that resources are readily available.
Now you just answered my last question, and that was, do you have to be a student? And you very specifically said whether you're a student or a member of the community. So if one were to go to Howard University, since that's we're right here in DC, would they go to the library? Where would they find it on the campus of Howard?
Yes, it's baked into the library on Howard's campus.
Okay.
And again, we have all our information listed on USPTO.gov.
Okay.
And you can just type in PTRCs and it will come up. But it's baked into the library. And if you go to the library on Howard's campus, you can easily ask the librarian at the front desk. You can say, hey, I'm interested in the Patent and Trademark Resource Center. Can you point me to those resources? And the librarian be able to help and assist you with that, whether that's tools, a list of workshops that are coming up, one-on-one consultations. That librarian will be able to help get you all the information you need.
And before I let you go, because I know you have a plane to catch, so I'm going to let you get out of there. But I mean, can you emphasize for our audience, I mean, why is it important to have a patent or a trademark on your idea? What protection does it give you, and how long do you have that protection?
Generally speaking, this the way that I like to think of it is, again, we're not short on ideas, it's the resources. When you're creating something, whether it's a trademark for a business or it's a new invention, you want to be able to legally protect that, because then people can recreate the idea. And most people, when they have a trademark or a patent, they're able to widely distribute it. They can lease it for other people to use, they can share the idea for other people to use. And it's very easy sometimes that if we don't legally protect our work, for someone to take that idea, they can then take ownership of it, and they'll be able to make a business or a profit off of the hard work that you have put in. So it's really about legally protecting yourself in your business, whatever that may be, to make sure that if you do decide you want to lease in the future, that you can. If you want to make it readily available to the public, you can do so. In terms of how long these last, it varies depending on the application, but I believe specifically with some of the patents, I believe they're for a number of years, usually around 15, 20 years, that they are readily available before they're open to the public. So that's really my case to it, is there's so many great ideas out there. There's so many people that are creating new things. And I would say, look around you. This can be an app that's on your phone that we all use. This can be something like the wheelchair, right? Like for those who have families members who may have physical challenges. These are all ideas that people had to make something in someone else's life easier, but they were able to get it legally protected and then mass distribute it. So just think of all the amazing ideas that probably go through people's heads a day or a week, and jotting down these ideas. You want to be able to make sure that you have ownership of something that you are putting your effort and energy into.
Well, thank you, Troy. I really, really appreciate that. I think it's very clear and right for those people that have those ideas. Run on over there to Howard to the Founders Library, find that office, and sit down and have a conversation. And I mean, you can't know too much about what it is you're trying to produce. So I appreciate you being with us for sharing this information, and safe travels.
Thank you very much for having me once again. And please visit uspto.gov. You will find all our resources and information about our patent and trademark resource centers.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All righty. We're gonna move on. Actually, we were gonna move on to Ted Trebuchet, but it looks like we're having a little technical problem with him getting on to the show. But we did want to just mention, unless he can join us, that the Public Service Commission, and we could put up that flyer, the Public Service Commission is doing its Clean Energy Summit, and that will be next week. And I thought there were a few more details there, but we want to, we'll try to get some more information to you before the program ends. This is the website, cleanenergysummitdc.com. I think it's something that we all probably would want to at least find a little bit about. And so if we can get Ted on, it would be great. But if not, just go to the website, check it out. And, you know, it's particularly if you live in a community, you're a community leader, you know, you're someone who shares information, you go to a church in the area, you might want to attend the summit so you can bring that information back. You know, that's one of the things I really used to enjoy, and I still do with WOL when they talk about information is power. And so if we don't seek the information, we can't improve our lot. We can't make our communities more, empower our communities without that. So that's my little preaching moment as it relates to this Clean Energy Summit. And I'm sorry we're having this technical problem, but I think right now we'll just move on to the next segment of our program, which is really exciting for me. We have two of our esteemed Washington Informer journalists, well, three, I hope, Prince George's County reporter Richard Elliott, sports reporter Skylar Nelson, and our Washington Informer managing editor, Misha Green, to join us on our roundtable today to discuss some of the hottest topics in the news in the DMV. Welcome to Let's Talk, folks.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us. I'm so excited for this.
So before we go too far, Skylar, you're the newest person on the team. I don't want to shout you out, but I do. Right? You're a Howard University student. You're pursuing. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you're from, what you're majoring in, and just how you found the Washington Informer.
Yes. So my name is, I guess I'll introduce myself. I am Skylar Nelson. I am a senior journalism major at Howard University. I do have a minor in sports administration, and I am from Baltimore, Maryland. So yeah, I'm honestly so excited to be here and just knowing about the Informer. I'm not sure if you remember this, Miss Denise, but you actually came to one of my classes. It was multicultural media history, and I had Bermonte Bryant as a professor, and he raved about you tremendously. And that day we actually met, and you gave me a copy of the Informer. And then that's when I met Mr. Hill later on down the line, Mr. Edward Hill, and then he connected me with you. So that was one of the biggest things, I think, for me, the Informer just being a woman-owned basically like a woman-owned publication and a newspaper, and just seeing that and seeing your work and seeing the work of Miss Green, it just really just inspired me. And just coming into here, and as a Black press in terms of that, I was something that I really wanted to get involved in, and I'm actually truly grateful for this experience and cannot wait to connect with you all more and, to continue to keep informing the people of Washington, D.C.
Well, you remind me years ago, Misha, and I don't know if you know her, Richard, but we had one of our early sports writers was a woman named Carla Pay. And Carla was really, I mean, just she was out there with the guys, unfortunately, because she was breaking barriers in the area of sports, and so I'm glad that you're here because women can talk the talk. We just heard you and Chevry, our producer, having that conversation about the Commanders. We're going to talk to them a little bit later, talk about them a little bit later. But I'm just glad that you're on board, and so happy to have you, right, Misha?
Oh my goodness, I am ecstatic. I was joking with Skylar this morning. She might be one of our most prolific interns in terms of all the work that she's gotten out. Skylar started before the school year started, everyone. So I think that just shows you her commitment. And what really excited me was her first story was on the ground right before the Olympics. Silver Spring honored Dominique Dawes, and Skylar did not say, I'm not going to Silver Spring when I could be chilling in Baltimore on the last couple of weeks of my summer vacation, my last summer vacation, might I add. And, I said, well, if she's ready, let's go. And it's been such a treat to have you, and particularly your the curated hot takes on the Commanders every week. We super appreciate that.
So, Richard, we don't want to leave you out now, and we're going to bring you in a little bit because we're so glad that you are covering Prince George's County on the ground. And it's a lot going on in the county. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I think we're going to jump right now into our first topic, folks, and that is this controversy that I don't even know if we can put a period behind this sentence with regards to And Pizza, the DC-based pizza chain that outraged DC residents with the launch of this marketing campaign featuring a dessert item called Marion Berry Knots. What made a bad idea worse was the focus of the powdered sugar featured in the ad and the slogan, "These knots will blow you up." The inference to the late Marion for Life Berry and his drug-related arrest infuriated many DC locals, including Ron Moten, Reverend Tony Lee, and of course the former First Lady Cora Masters Berry, to name a few. What say ye, folks, about this situation? Who wants to start us off?
Well, I think Richard should start us off because he was the fearless journalist who has been covering it. And then I'll sort of weigh in from some intel I got this early morning. Richard, are you able to weigh in a bit?
Okay, sorry, the internet just went out where I was. The ad campaign regarding the Marion Berry Knots was disrespectful. It was degrading. One of the speakers at the rally, a key point he made is this doesn't just make fun of Marion Berry, just one short period of his life. This makes fun of everybody going through drug addiction recovery. It's a distasteful ad. It's not funny. And this not only affects DC natives and people currently living in DC, but many people living in Prince George's and Maryland and Northern Virginia are products of Marion Berry's administration, the opportunities that he gave to minority contractors, the opportunities he gave through the jobs program that helped many people, not just into the middle class, but off of their backs onto their feet. The ad was disgusting, and the simple fact that they've taken it down so fast after the CEO originally made such heinous comments of we can't wait for all DC to try it, and this isn't really about the mayor, we just are making a cheeky joke. They have quote unquote backed down, but I think that was just in the face of a lot of outrage and organizing efforts that are calling for boycotts to happen, I believe starting tonight at the U Street location where many people go after they go to the clubs on U Street.
Misha?
Yeah, again, thank you, Richard, for that breakdown in your coverage. I think one really interesting point you noted was the community interest piece on next steps of how this really affects folks down the road. We're talking about not just people who might be struggling with drug addiction or have done so in the past or have had family members, but we're talking about rhetoric that should not be celebrated in the community. And so this morning, as I was attempting to sort of figure out uh, why the protests were still going on, and after Ann Pizza's apology, is because now activists are demanding respect, but also demanding action that goes beyond an apology, and that is ensuring that something like this doesn't happen again. But also, they're trying to raise funds and get Ann Pizza to donate money to the Marion Barry Jr. Legacy Foundation, which does a lot of community work. And so I think that this is a really good opportunity that local activists are taking to continue building on the momentum, particularly as we're in a very divisive season, this election season, to see folks coming together in this way to now promote progress is great. As I've seen a lot of people say, and I will see on the record, I also want to see this momentum that folks have had about this Ann Pizza controversy around heading to the polls in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't know, Skylar, if I don't know, you were still kind of young. I don't know if you knew much about Marion Barry, but coming to DC, I know it's not hard to be familiar with that name. Any conversations going on campus?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway to kind of see about this is also too just how it shows Black leaders in the community how we are perceived. And I think the biggest thing that we can see from this is just the fact of like that just really just puts Black people on a pedestal of like, so this is how we're being represented, this is how we're being perceived. It not only was disrespectful, but it honestly just showed that this is something that needs to change. This is what people see. And I think the biggest thing is that has been mentioned before is, and I'm glad that Miss Green brought this up, is I'm very encouraged to see how people will take this and take it to the polls, because with Kamala Harris running and with that in mind, we get to see kind of the dynamic of how we are going to take those next steps for change. And on campus, there have been just a lot of people just talking about how can we make these changes in order to move forward, and to pave a new way forward as well.
I'll just say the thing that's frustrating me also the most about this is if you read, it's the bias that we have in the media. And, we all have it. Even the Washington Informer can be charged with having some biases about certain issues from time to time. But if you read the other publications, one of the things that they keep saying is that Marion Barry is still sort of upheld as a hero by the poor and underrepresented communities. And that's not the case only. Right. I mean, folks east of the river, particularly over here in Ward 8, Southeast, appreciate him too. But Richard, I think you really brought it home when you talked about individuals who have benefited or who benefited from the Barry administration. Many of them were developers, right? And they, there's so many who are not Black, who are not poor, who are even not living in the city anymore, who benefited under that administration, and some who did benefit. So I think that's what troubles me a little bit about the ongoing story, not only what Ann Pizza did, but just how the story is being reported. So,
well, I was going to say I really appreciated our coverage because I think that we were able to note the fact that this is not only disturbing and as Mrs. Berry used, disrespectful for AM Pizza's actions, but it's such a small part of Berry's legacy, which, to your point, not only continues in the district that we have today, but I think, there are so many Washingtonians who have Marion Berry to thank for their first summer job and will be doing so years after 2024. The man died 10 years ago, and his legacy continues. Just last year, we were covering the celebration of Marion Berry Avenue, and so to really disregard his legacy or to silo it to only the poor people or the underrepresented folks of Washington, D.C. is not only fair, but those publications who are doing it are guilty of misinformation, because it's just absolutely not true.
I want to, Richard, you want to say something?
I have two last little notes, and that's this further muddies the ability to actually chronologue his history, because if you were to just Google Marion Berry now and try and learn about him, the top 25 or so things are going to be about this particular controversy, rather than the fact that he was one of the few civil rights activists that actually became a mayor, that in many, many ways, he brought democracy to DC as it currently exists. It is actually very hard, even for me as like a sort of archival historian, to find detailed information on his administration and the long-term impacts. But much like Misha just said, his legacy is not only continuing, it's growing through the outcrop of like the children and grandchildren whose families rose into the middle class or were able to move, or even were just able to sustain as a result of his policies.
Great point. Great point. And I want to move now to someone else whose legacy, when you talk about legacy, that we will probably be talking a lot about going into this new elections, this new cycle. And that is former mayor and Ward 7 candidate Vincent Gray, who announced this week that he will not be voting for the rest of his term due to early onset age-related dementia. And we know that he did not run for re-election in Ward 7, and his term will end in December. But I think there's a lot to talk about with regards to Vince Gray, and we won't do a lot today, but if you were to think of something that would be his greatest legacy, mine, of course, I'm going to just jump in really quick, is the new Cedar Hill Hospital that he wanted to see to fruition before he got out of office and started when he became mayor. Is over the Health Commission. And so that will open in February. And I think, I'd love for us to, if it hasn't been done already, to push the idea of creating a ward or some section of that hospital that would be in his name. But anybody else want to weigh in on this?
Well, I'm so sorry to hear about Mayor Gray, former Mayor Gray's, and the current council member Gray's dementia diagnosis. Quick anecdote, personally, that I love about the former mayor is when he was in office as mayor, he was a part of a Kiwanis Club celebration, giving scholarships to students from around the district. And I think there were everyone who did the volunteer work and were finalists, I should say, got small awards, and we all got laptops, which was wonderful. And so I didn't know who were the top 3 winners who got the big prize. And the person who announced that I was the scholarship recipient was the mayor. And so I just, every time I would see him, I would always say, you helped really contribute to my undergraduate decision to be able to go to Fordham University. So I just wanted to start with that. But one of the things that I really am impressed with Gray currently as a part of his legacy is that his resilience has been so incredibly inspiring throughout his service. Obviously, he's been a dedicated servant to the district for a number of decades, but over the past few years, he's really been struggling with his health and still been dedicated to serving not only his constituents in Ward 7, but to Miss Denise's point, the district at large. And I really just want to commend him for that, because I think it's a lesson in letting your passion keep you going. And so I know this had to be a really difficult decision for him, but I think we should celebrate all that he's accomplished in his many years of service.
Exactly. Again, we haven't had that many mayors of the district. And of course, we've all been very proud of all those that have served. And for him to go from mayor to Ward 7, we know when you talk about history, Richard, we know that there were some hiccups along the way with regards to his service. But, undoubtedly, I think he's been well respected as a member of the DC City Council and the mayor. Yeah,
I'm going to show my age and say that when he served as mayor, I think I was in high school. I think.
Richard, that can't be true, because I know I'm older than you and I was in high school. I just said that whole story, but that's okay. It makes me feel better. See,
so,
guys, I'm sorry. This is the editor fact checking.
But it's good. I mean, I think everybody will have a memory of some sort, and to be able to share that, because his, this thing that we've talked about, this dementia, is serious, and is very serious within the Black community. And we'll be doing some more on that. I know our health writer, Linda Way Valakazi, has been very focused on that. We want to talk more about it. I'm certainly we will be in days ahead. Voting. We talk a little bit about voting. Monday on October 28th, the early voting takes place in the District of Columbia. I think you've already started out there, and you're okay, Richard, out there in Prince George's and in Maryland. And I want to know kind of what's been happening on the college campuses, Skylar. So let me bring you in here first. What are students doing? Are they voting absentee? Are they voting in the district? And what are you seeing, and what are they talking about?
Yes. So as you know, a lot of college students can't go home. They are out of state, especially at Howard. I mean, we do have a lot of local Howard students who are from the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. Most students plan on going home to vote. However, the students that aren't going home to vote, they're going to vote absentee. So they're going to send that vote through the mail. One of the biggest worries has been, is my vote going to get counted? Will my vote be seen? And I think that's one of the biggest things and one of the challenges that we're going to see with that electoral vote as well, because there are some arguments that not all votes are counted. So that's one of the biggest conversations that has been surrounding the Howard University area. But of course, Howard University, especially with Kamala Harris being that big alum, they are going to be in support of her.
And I know that folks were hoping to see her last weekend during homecoming. And there is conversation that she may spend election night at Howard, although I understand you and Misha were talking earlier about the fact that the campus may be closed or will be closed on election day. But is there any growing excitement about the fact that she may be there on November 5th?
I think there is. For me personally, just seeing her not being able to come at homecoming, that was announced the morning before the football game that she was not coming. I think some students really anticipate it, but also too, I think with just her presence in DC alone, I think students are just excited overall. But, it would be nice to see her and to see her come out, of course. But I would also understand that if she does stay near the Capitol as well, because of how small DC is.
Mm-hmm. And Richard, I think I mentioned early voting. That started already in Prince George's or in Maryland? Is that correct?
Yes, early voting started yesterday, but given the 2020 introduction of vote by mail as like a primary method of voting, early vote outside of the first few days generally has lower overall turnout because a lot of people, myself included, my grandparents included, my neighbors included, we vote by mail now that those ballots are sent. That said, Anthony Tillman, one of our photographers, he said that he expects a all-time high in turnout at Suitland early voting. I believe that the way that the voting is looking right now in Maryland, it is highly likely that Angela Alsobrooks is elected to the United States Senate, and I would say that she is poised for a 5 to 7 digit victory, which is a great thing.
Yeah, that's quite a prediction there. And so, and also, I mean, I didn't know if we were going to see in Prince George's or in DC what we've seen in Atlanta and other places with these extremely long lines. But yeah, like you said, a lot of people are utilizing the mail-in ballots. And I will know on Monday, Misha, what's going to happen in the district. But what are your predictions?
So here in the district, we have a lot of interesting races that our fearless journalists have been covering. Sam PK Collins has been following the State Board of Education race really closely. And so I encourage everyone to check in on washington.informer.com for that, as well as the congressional race, which I have my mail-in ballot. And of course, I've been reading and editing and engaging with these stories week after week, but it's so interesting to see these names there and realize, you know, that there's a heated competition going as well for the congressional race. I think a lot of people do predict that the longtime serving representative for the District of Columbia, Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton, will be the victor. But it'll be interesting to see the numbers and see how folks turn up. And I think it's fair to say that no matter how these elections go, whether in the Ward 7 State Board of Education race, as well as the congressional race here in the district and ANCs, all of this, I'm seeing some of these people who are just poising themselves to say, hey, I'm here and very interested in district politics and want to help out the community and how I can. And so these will be people whose names we'll hear for a very long time. They're young, they're excited, and I'm just excited to be a part of watching the action happen.
Well, I know there's a great debate over the passage of Initiative 83. We've talked about that. I know that there's a front page story in this issue of the Washington Informer. We talked about it last week on Let's Talk. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with regards to that initiative here in the District of Columbia. So, in Baltimore, Skylar, what's happening out there? I mean, I know that you kind of have one ear on the ground in your city.
Yes, the city is really just gearing up for this election, to be so honest with you. I think the biggest thing, Mayor Brandon Scott, he's been pretty active. He's been talking to community leaders. He's been, just really involved. I think one of the biggest things is getting college students involved. He has a lot of interns from Morgan State University and Bowie State University who are really just, helping him along this way. He did attend the Democratic National Convention. So, with that support alone, he is really trying to appeal to the younger audience, especially high school students who are 18 and older, saying, hey, it's time to vote. It's time to get out here and really just hear your voices being heard. And I think that's one of the biggest things that the city of Baltimore does need right now and is, going through that progress.
Wow, who would have thought? But you're right. I mean, we talk about younger voices, but how do we get them? Who's actually talking to folks? Going to the places where they are and saying, you can register and vote. We tried that in the District of Columbia to get 16-year-olds to vote, but that didn't work. So, but it's not too early to engage them, as Richard talked about being in high school when Vincent Gray was mayor, and not sure.
Which I was. I was in high school in 2011.
Okay, fair, fair. During the tail end, okay, fair. That's fine.
Yeah, so we want to jump now to some really great conversation. I mean, some great news. I don't care. I mean, there may be some Cowboys fans or some other fans or whatever, but nobody can say that everybody is not excited about the Commanders. What about those Commanders? I mean,
Skylar's a good luck charm. Skylar starts writing about them, they start winning for the first time in my adult life.
Yeah, so Skylar, bring us up to date. I mean, tell us. I mean, this has been unbelievable. Are we Super Bowl bound or what?
Yes, Richard, I appreciate that because just seeing and hearing what everybody has been talking about with them in the past year. I've spoken to fans, I've spoken to other reporters, I've spoken to the players themselves. They have not had a playoff win since 2008. So this really is coming into the fold. Over the summer, they overhauled, well, back in January, they overhauled their entire squad, the coaches, the owner. Basically everybody was replaced. And I think this year, bringing in the new dynamic, the new offensive coordinator, the new defensive coordinator, the head coach, Dan Quinn, he is a defensive guy, and just bringing that aggressiveness and that culture to Washington, D.C. Running back Austin Eckler spoke on this, and wide receiver Terry McLaurin, just the culture that Dan Quinn brings as a coach, and just bringing that in dynamic with the star rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels has really been serving them pretty well.
Sherry wanted me to ask you, Skylar, this because I mean, folks thought the back office of the Commanders was toxic with Dan Snyder. He's gone, and we got a new owner. How are folks feeling about the new owner compared to Snyder?
Folks are really excited. The new owner, he's been very involved in just that community engagement. When I was speaking to fans at the Darryl Green celebration for his jersey being retired last weekend, fans were just excited by the dynamic that the organization is bringing. They're starting to embrace the Commander's name, embrace, just being that team, being back at Northwest Stadium, and possibly moving back to RFK later on down the line. But that has not been truly confirmed, but it was an idea. I think just knowing these things alone is getting fans excited. It's getting them geared up for a possible playoff contention here. And I think, as they move forward and as they start to see that all generations of Commanders fans are coming into fold, it's going to be a big one.
So we got a big game coming up on Sunday, right? Give us your prediction on Sunday's game. How, Commanders win, but how many points? What do you think?
Yes. There are a lot of factors for Sunday's game. Jaden Daniels, he suffered a rib injury at the end of last week's game. He finally got us to a 10-0 lead, but then was ruled out, and that was one of the biggest things that fans were scared of. I could see fans just seeing them at the game just in worriness and being scared because they've seen the Commanders go down. So just seeing that dynamic, like the entire decade just flew by in their mind. And I think, just seeing Marcus Mariota come out into play and getting back into that, I think just really just gave them hope for the future. Even Terry McLaurin, wide receiver Terry McLaurin, he could speak on this, just playing under over 10 quarterbacks in the last decade is kind of scary. It kind of just puts the organization at such a disadvantage. However, seeing him go down, Dan Quinn, he did say that Jaden is on week to week. From a coach's perspective and speaking in sports terms, that doesn't really sound like he's going to play on Sunday. I know fans want to see that dynamic between him and the the number one overall draft pick, Caleb Williams. That's supposed to be a very big matchup this Sunday, and fans want to see it for the culture. However, I do believe Dan Quinn is going to have to really stand on it as a coach and say, you're not going to play this weekend because of how far the Commanders have come. And I think that's truly important here.
Richard, I have never heard you be this quiet when talking sports because
Okay. Let me make it 2 points here. While I am not a supporter of the Commanders, it is illegal to not support black quarterbacks. And let me read some of the stats that Jaden Daniels has been leading the team to so far this season. Right now, the Commanders lead the NFL in total yards. In total points. They're third in total yards. They're third in first downs, third in passing attempts, and fourth in yards per passing attempt with only 3 turnovers. Jaden Daniels has been a hallmark of efficiency. The ability to pass and run the ball as of yet has been unprecedented. He is doing stuff that Lamar Jackson, that Steve Young, that Donovan McNabb, etc., were unable to do even in the primes of their career, and he's doing it as a rookie. The team is right now poised for greatness as long as they continue to build the team in ways that really affect his abilities. The team right now, I think, is like top 5 in rushing, and the number 1 running back has only about 400 rushing yards. If the team, in my opinion, is able to get a running back that can block and receive the ball out of the backfield, maybe a tight end, they convert to a running back, get some offensive linemen to protect them, and the 2 most important, getting a wide receiver number 2 option and getting a cornerback. I think this team could win a Super Bowl during the reign of Jaden Daniels. Now, I'm not going to say I'm rooting for it, but I'm not going to root against it either.
Well, your sweatshirt certainly does give me the impression that you're halfway there. So, I'm sure we would love to have you as one of our fans. I mean, Misha, I've been pretty quiet. I don't know if there's something you wanted to add in before we close out.
Well, go Commanders, but I have to just say this, and if anyone takes my idea now, I know who to come after. All these folks watching Win TV. It is illegal not to support black quarterbacks belongs on a t-shirt. That is great, Richard. But yes, go Commanders all the way. I'm excited to see Sunday's game.
All right.
And look out for Skylar's coverage, everybody.
That's right. Skylar, will you be there?
Yes, I will be there in the fold watching possibly Jaden Daniels or Marcus Mariota start this game and lead out for the Commanders. I'm excited.
Before we go, Skylar, I just want to ask you one question, though. I mean, you're a female, you're a young female, but how do they treat you out there at those games? I mean, do you have to fight like the Commanders have had to get your spot, to be recognized, or what? What's it like for you?
Now, I can actually speak on this. When I first started, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm finally here in the mix, just seeing what is going on. It was a little nerve-wracking at first because I was like, I don't want to overhaul the players, but just being there and being in that dynamic, I think people are starting to understand that is my job, just fighting through that just a little bit, but also too, they look at me and they're like, oh, she's not going anywhere. So we're going to expect her questions. We're going to expect her presence. And it's been overall just an exciting experience. It's been a learning experience for me. And it's also just been too fulfilling because I love sports. So
yes. Wonderful.
Skylar, you are excelling, and I cannot wait to talk positively about the Washington Wizards with you in about 2 years.
Yes, they have their game. Actually, tomorrow they have voters night. So that's going to be a big game, especially too, since they're working on trying to get out that dynamic. I know Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma talked about this at Media Day, just the importance of voting too. So that's going to be a good one.
Folks, I want to thank you all for this conversation. It was great. I hope we can do it. Well, I know we're going to do it again next month. So we will have might have a couple more members of the team, have a lot more to talk about when it comes to sports, have a lot to talk about when it comes to politics and elections. So look forward to us getting together on Win TV as well. I want folks to know we're reporting as well that Vice President Kamala Harris will be as reportedly will be at the National Mall on Tuesday, October the 30th. It's sort of an in-your-face Donald Trump kind of thing to show how unity on the mall can happen. And so we will be there to cover that as well. So until then, I just want to thank you for joining us today on this edition of Let's Talk. And we want you to have a great weekend. We're going to try to do that. So folks, we're not ending right now. I'm going to let our team go. Looks like we have Ted Trebu. We want to get him in for a few minutes, but thanks a lot for joining us. Ted, are you there?
Can you hear?
I see you, but I can't hear you.
You can hear. You have to talk myself. We'll try to work on it next week or something.
Okay, we're gonna try. We did announce the summit earlier. We put the flyer up earlier about the Clean Energy Summit. Certainly did want to know some more about that, but we have directed people to go to the website. And we are urging folks who are ANC commissioners, community leaders, church leaders, anybody that has an audience to come send a representative to the summit so that they can take that information back to the community and we can go from there. So I'm sorry that this didn't work out, but we certainly do appreciate you trying, and we will see you soon. I do. Anyway, all right. So that's it for this edition of Let's Talk, and we hope that you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you back here next week.
Music.
My name is Jada, and I vote because I want to have a voice in the future. Check out the Washington Informer Voter Resource Guide to request your mail-in ballot. Voting is important because in order to affect change in the world, it starts with your ballot in November.